Pretty much. And I think the rabbi has a lot of knowledge. There is not a better source today. I know there's a lot of Kabbalistic sources today. That sometimes the Kabbalistic sources could be the retention rate cannot be so great. But the rabbi really brings down real Kabbalah, where it's practical and it's going to help you, versus just get you excited and next thing you know, you leave the customer. So it's extremely important. His books the rabbi has over 40 books on each one of the month, on astrology, relationships. He's coming out with one. And we really have a pleasure to have you here. Rabbi, everybody give him a hand, please. Thank you. Rabbi, welcome. So, Rabbi, we're going to start with the month of Cheshvan. We'll start with the month of Cheshvan. We know this is a month where the going gets tough and the tough get going. Tell us a little bit about this month. What can we expect, and how do we lead? How do we connect this month to the month of Kislev, which is the month of miracles, etc.?
So first of all, thank you, Rabbi, for this opportunity. So the month of how long?
You have about an hour.
Each question for now?
No. Oh. Keep 5 minutes. ADD crowd, so 5 minutes. It's an ADD. I feel ADD vibes here. So 5 minutes. We know the crowd, especially from New York. New York, 4 minutes.
Okay. So the month of Cheshvan is a very interesting month of the year, in that it's the only month of the entire cycle of the calendar that actually has nothing going on. So not highs. Let's say Tishrei is high, Kislev is high, Nisan is high, and then there's also months that represent down or low, Tammuz, Av, Tevis, and then Cheshvan is a silent month. It's the only month of the year that has no holidays, not Torah holidays, not rabbinic holidays, not customs, nothing.
Except November 6th. At least Trump won. Otherwise, we would have been in real silence.
Right. Okay. So up until then, the month of Cheshvan is a very quiet month. In fact, the word Cheshvan comes from the word Chosh. Chosh means silence. And this is a very, very important month because, in life, any time, any type of relationship, whether it's a relationship between you and Hashem or you and others, when things are really exciting and there's a lot of external stimula, so people get into it. It's Rosh Hashanah, it's the Seder, it's Lag BaOmer, it's Purim. Everyone gets excited, even when it's more sad. So either in life, when you're moving up, you feel life. When you're moving down, you feel life as well. It's either tragedy or comedy. And either way, you're feeling good, but you feel something. So you're feeling good or you're feeling bad, but at least you're feeling. Cheshvan is a quiet month. There is no feelings. It represents something that's flat. But the truth is that the true transformation and the true growth of a person in any situation is in those times when things are just normal. If you're talking about relationships, you feel close to your spouse or close to your parents in a good time. It's a wedding or it's a good time. That's a nice thing. And then there's other times you feel very close because you're going through something, God forbid, tragic or sadder. And then there's just a Tuesday afternoon. And are you there for the other person on the Tuesday afternoon? And that's the real trick in relationships, not in the high times, not in the low times. Because that's when always people show up. People show up in the high times and low times. The harder time to show up is when it's flat and there's nothing going on. But that's really the truth of a deep relationship, is when you show up in those times. And in a way, that is actually the place where everything is possible, because that's the ayin, that's the emptiness that allows the possibility for everything to occur. In order for miracles to occur, for extraordinary things for us in our personal lives and our collective life, in order to experience these things, if we're in a high state, certainly if we're in a low state, then we're locked into a certain paradigm, we're locked into a certain way, and nothing extraordinary can happen to us. And the only way we can open ourselves up to something that's miraculous is by being quiet, by stopping, by being just present in the moment, and saying this is the foundation of something that will evolve into something that's miraculous. So when we're in the in-between states, like Cheshvan. That's why Cheshvan comes before the miracles of Hanukkah. The miracles of Hanukkah cannot occur if we're stuck in a certain way. Let's say a person is in a job, let's say for example, and they're making, I don't know what today people make. Let's say a person is making $100,000 and the person really wants to make $1 million. And that they're in this job. So they get a raise and it bumps up a little more, a little bit more, and they get up to 200. But then you're out of a job. And when you're out of a job, maybe you're going to get a job that's going to give you $1 million. So sometimes, not sometimes, always when we're stop and we pause and we allow ourselves to be in that in-between state, and not in the high and the low, we open ourselves up for miracles and blessings.
Beautiful. Rabbi, you speak a lot about manifesting in your books. You speak about sound vibration, manifestation. I know it's a general question, but what is your according to what I when I manifest, many times you say to picture it, to picture something with an emotion. Talk a little bit about practical manifestation. Should we be manifesting the end goal, or should we be manifesting the process? Or should we be manifesting us going through the struggle and beating the struggle? This is a loaded manifestation question. You get there's different
Yeah, I think if you think of your life and a struggle, and every time you close your eyes, not literally but metaphorically, and your dreams, your natural things, the movie that plays in your mind is struggle. You're going to struggle your whole life, and we have a choice. We don't have to be an autopilot. We can create our own reality. Of course, this comes with Tveikus, being connected with Hashem, the source of our life. It's not we're the creators, but we have this creative state within ourselves when we feel connected to Hashem and we feel connected with one with Hashem. We have the creative power that's the co-creative power to create our life. And therefore, I think it's very important for us to change the narrative in our minds, to look at ourselves as successes as opposed to failures, or to think of yourself as someone that has already overcome that challenge versus a person that's struggling. Because according to what you create in your mind, that's what's going to actually be. So it's important to do that. In terms of what you mentioned about this idea of general versus very specific, it's also very important, certainly if you're doing this as a practice, and this is what the Kabbalahs write very clearly, that when a person does in a particular practice, it's very important to give that whole form of your ideas that you have in your head the fullness of the experience. So you can actually smell how it smells like, see how it looks like in all its detail. Because what you really want to do is you want to hardwire your subconscious, your deeper mind that really informs us a lot about ourselves and who we are, to have its own story, that whenever we even are not conscious of creating that story, that's the story that's playing in our head. So the more we create that story in detail, the more it becomes lodged into our subconscious, and the more we start living that reality in our lives.
Beautiful. What hours do you recommend for this? Is this a what are the best? And you spoke a lot about the right brain, left brain. I mean, I've never seen from a Jewish source so much stuff about breaking patterns and manifestation. Is this something you do in the mornings? What's the best, or is it better to do it the night before you sleep? We're squeezing you today, my Rabbi. So what I like that I want to be very, very specific. These are questions that I want, and obviously you have so many sources. What would be the best time, do you think? Like I do it very, very early in the morning, but could at night be the same thing? Or is there specific hours that are more appropriate for this?
You do it in the morning because Reb Nachman says to do things in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
So it makes sense. Reb Nachman talks about this idea before the world becomes muddied,
Noisy, yeah.
noisy. So you have the clarity to create things. I think it's important to do it in the morning, the first thing you wake up. And that's why we say Moedani. One of the things that we do in the morning is we thank Hashem, which means we wake up in the morning with a positive attitude. Shechazarta b'nishmasi. Hashem, we're grateful, we're thankful, we're hopeful, We say, Rabba Munasecha, great is your faith in me. You believe in me. I believe in myself. The whole day, according to the Baal Shem Tov, the entire day is articulated from the first thoughts that we have in the morning and the first words that we speak in the morning. You wake up in the morning, you say, today's going to be a terrible day. It's going to be a terrible day. You wake up in the morning and say, thank you, Hashem, for giving me this beautiful day. Shechazarta min nishmas, you gave my soul. You believe in me. You think I can do something today. That's very important because that the day will become that. And to language it, to say it with words, it's very important to actually say it because it becomes more a reality. There's a vibrational, visceral feeling of that. If you don't understand the Hebrew, you say it in English. It's not the issue. The main thing is it should be said. The same thing also before you go to sleep. And before you go to sleep, there's an old tradition, and the Zohar speaks about it often, of a person doing a cheshbon nefesh, like accounting for the soul before they go to sleep, which really means to think about your day. It could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, as long as you can do this. To think about your day and think of your successes that day, and the things that maybe you failed at and you wish you did better, and to enter your dream state with a conviction and an affirmation that it's going to be better tomorrow. Because during the night, a lot of things are happening as well. If you go to sleep, before you go to sleep, you hear, I know people do this and it's a terrible thing. If people, let's say, look at the news, certainly if it's bad news, and that's or violent news or other things that are you shouldn't be seeing, and then you go to sleep. So for the next 7, 6, 7, 8 hours, whatever you're sleeping, that's what's going to be happening.
Affects your imagination.
It affects your imagination, exactly. And then the next morning you wake up and you're all angry and you don't know why. Well, for the last 8 hours, your subconscious has been dreaming about these things. Maybe you're not aware. So it's very important that a person goes to sleep with a sense of beyond the idea of that I'm giving my soul, I'm trusting, I have trust in Hashem. That's why we say Shema before we go to sleep. The Yerushalmi, the Talmud, the Jerusalem Talmud says that there were sages used to say Shema over and over again, like a type of mantra, and they used to fall asleep saying Shema, because they're going to sleep. They're transitioning into a sleep state through the awareness of Echad, that everything is one. So it's important that we go to sleep also in a very peaceful, correct state of mind. Correct.
One of the things that was an absolute game changer for me, you wrote one of your books that thought speech cancels thought and action cancels speech. So that was one of the things that I was very focused on, how just by taking, who cares how you feel, like just take some kind of action. And I think by doing that, it allowed you to change your identity. Talk about how that process of thought, speech, and action, how the higher level and where's that sourced. Because I think that's just such a transformative, because 90% of our decisions are based on our mood, and we end up going into the opposite, not action, but we end up going into inaction because we don't feel like it.
Right.
Talk about that a little bit. Where's the source of that?
So for the stages. So the first thing is that words are more powerful than our thoughts, which means, first of all, the words that we speak concretize our thoughts. They make it real. And the way we language things will affect our thoughts. So let's say a person, this is brought down in the Reishis Chachma, which is a classic work on Musar, written in the 1500s by a student of the Ramak, Wesh Kadavero. Elio de Vidas wrote this book. And it's one of the most classic works of Musar. He gives a counter, I would say, a contrarian idea, which most people don't think about, is he says that when you're angry, don't speak about it. Right. Most people think that when you're angry, vent, say it.
You're going to lose customers tonight, Rabbi.
I know. But he says that actually makes it worse.
Wow.
He says because now, in a different context, of course, we're not going to get into details, but the idea of that is that when a person is angry, maybe you're a little bit angry, and then you start speaking about it. And you know what this person did to me, and you can believe what happened, and all of a sudden, the next thing you're like flaming up in anger. Wow. The words actually created your reality. And the reverse is also, of course, for the positive as well. You're feeling a certain emotion, speak about it in a different way, language in a different way. Words cancel thoughts.
Wow.
So the power of speech, the power of creation is really through speech. the entire Sefer Yetzirah talks about this idea of like the power of creating, that the world was created through speech. Dvar Hashem Hashemayim Nasa, Hashem creates through speech. We contextualize or really create through speech. So that's the idea of speech, and the same thing even more so on an inner level, it's thoughts, then words, and then actions. But externally, our actions have the effect to change our thoughts. And this idea is expressed throughout the book of Sefer Chinuch, right? So, Acher Amaisen Nishach Malavavis, the Sefer Chinuch writes that a person's thoughts, his heart follows his actions. You don't feel love to your, I don't want to say, but let's say your parent, your child, your sibling, and you're not feeling it. And so sometimes you'll think, okay, let me like create that feeling. And the Chinuch says, no, don't create the feeling, do something for them. Actually do an act of love. If you do an act of love, you become vested in them and love will follow. So if you're not feeling love for a spouse or for a friend or for a parent, for a child, don't try to just meditate yourself into a state where you're going to feel the love, but actually take an action. Do a physical act of love, and that will bring you to a place of feeling it.
We just saved you guys tons of therapy, by the way, tonight. So it doesn't have to make sense, pretty much.
Just do it.
Just do it. Rabbi, we speak a lot about, a lot of people are having a hard time with letting go. And, faith is one way, Tomer Devor is a way. What are other practical ways of just letting go? Of letting go. Just letting go of an insult, letting go of a mother-in-law coming over too long. Just letting go. Just the big question I get: how do you let go? How do you let go? I mean, I myself, I use Tomer Devora, I use prayer. I throw the book Letting Go at them. I practice that. Is there any other things people could do just to let go? Because you could see that when we don't let go, that becomes our personality. And it affects the way we look it affects the way we go into future relationships, etc. There's a lot of people that have a hard time. Well, what would you recommend? I also use prayer, but maybe there's other things that's a very common question.
It's a good question. You can flip the question.
Okay.
And the question is really, how do you not let go? Because
Wow.
the only place that we live in is right now. Everything else is either our memory or a fantasy. The only thing that's happening in this world at any time is this very moment. So the moment you recognize that, you have to live it. It's an experience. So that's
How do you not let go?
how do you not let go? What does it mean to hold on to something in the past? The past only exists in your thoughts, and you have a choice how that thought should be in your mind. So the experience, if you experience something negative in your past, let's say something traumatizing, something really negative happened to you, and it's a year later, and you allow the memory of that experience to come exactly the way it happened, your body will not know the difference whether it's actually experiencing this trauma or it's a memory of the trauma. And what you're doing to yourself is you're re-traumatizing yourself again. And this is with every single experience that we have. So we have choices at every moment in our life. Do we want to live in a place that doesn't exist? Or do we want to live in the only place that exists, which is now? And that's why the word for tshuva, the sages, the Talmud says, the Medrash says, that va'ata, and now, ein va'ata lashon tshuva. The word and now means tshuva. Tshuva means now. To transform yourself means to live right now. And it's not an idea. It's not just, it's a nice idea. I should live in the present. There is no other place to live. And that's your choice. You want to live in some place that doesn't exist? Go ahead.
I remember you had in your book, the book on Tshuva, Reclaiming Myself. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you spoke about how, I think this is an incredible insight, how Tshuva is really recalibrating consciousness. And the word avar is avera. Staying in the past is this. The sin is staying in the past. That avar itself, the fact that you're in the past, that's the greatest sin. Is that a sin because you're holding revenge? Is it some kind of revenge, or you're holding hatred in your heart?
You're holding on to negativity.
You're holding on to negativity. So staying in the past is actually a sin. It's something that that's why we feel so terrible about it. And the key is when you said also that the word tikkun or tinok,
Right, same word.
is the same word. Like the rectification is to be like a child and let it go. Explain a little bit about that. I do a lot of reading, you should say.
It's to live in wonder. You know, we get jaded, and you ever saw a child? You know, all the great tzaddikim love children. Why? Why do great tzaddikim love children? Because children are in a constant state of wonder. They don't know anything yet, and everything that they know is wow. And we look at the miracles of life, and okay, the sun shines. But imagine the first time you saw the sun, or you imagine just you daven every day, and you pick up the book of Tehillim, the book of Psalms, which is by King David. Imagine someone told you there was no such book, and they just uncovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls a text that was written by David HaMelech. Imagine today, 2024, someone came over and said there's a book that was written by King David. You know what kind of passion you would say that to them? You would open that book and you'd be so excited. And the reason why we're not, when you tell your child that this is a book by by David HaMelech, your child's like, what? Really? Wow. And we're like, yeah, okay. So the jadedness of life comes precisely because we're so stuck in past narratives and past events, and everything is filed. Oh yeah, I've seen that. I've done that. There's nothing new. There's no ischachus. There's no renewal. There's no sense of wonder. And the tikkun for life, is to be like a tinok. The tikkun of life is to be like a child with wonderment, to wake up every morning and say, "Wow, what a beautiful world."
Beautiful. Rabbi Nachman speaks about that a person has many zivugim, and he speaks about how a person can attract them through shmirat brit, through being in the proper masculine energy, and losing them by males being in feminine energy. Speak about the concept of zivugim, which is matches. How many do people have? Is there ever a lost cause where where there's what can a person do to attract one? Just go into that. I know that it's also a very common question that we get here.
I mean, it's a big question. That's a lot of but there's according to the Arizal, there's a general soul which called like Adam Katman, that's primordial being, and there are different parts of the body, and souls are linked to different parts of the body. So there's souls that are connected to the hand, for example, people that are kind and giving, souls that are connected to the brain, souls that are connected to the heart. This is very general, and so there are souls. Every soul has a masculine and a feminine soul. So there's your perfect zivug, which the Ari calls your zivug rishon, which means your first zivug, but it doesn't mean first in sequence. It could be you can marry your first in sequence as your 10th marriage. Hopefully not.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not in sequence.
So it's not the first one.
No, it's the first in order, not a first in.
Okay.
First in spiritual order, not in actual.
Breathe, everybody, breathe.
Yeah.
So your second marriage could be your
Your zivug rishon, of course, yes. Yeah.
The first one could have just been a oops.
No, not a oops. Not a oops. Not a oops. Nothing's a oops. No, there's souls.
People hope here.
There are souls that are connected to us that come from the same area within the general soul of Adam, and those are souls that we feel attracted to. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a perfect zivug. It means that we needed to be with that particular person for a certain period of time.
Oh, wow.
Nothing's an oops. If Hashem put you with this person,
wow,
and you were living with this person, even for a day, for a week, or however you live with this person, part of your tikkun was to be involved with this person for a certain period of time. And then, you moved on, and then you have to find your perfect zivug, your zivug rishon. So that's the way it works. And so there's nothing by accident. Everything that we encounter in this world is part of our soul journey, part of our purpose of moving forward.
Could have been a 10-year lease.
Yeah, it's a 10-year lease. It could be a 10-year lease. This is the same thing also. I mean, if you talk about people, but there's also sometimes, forget about your spouse. There's certain times you were very close to someone when you were young, and then you lost touch. And then you meet them and you really have nothing in common any longer.
Right.
So that means that person was there in that time period where you were. Or it could be even objects. A person has a certain object in this world, a house, a car, or a certain thing, or a certain amount of money. There's the things that we have in our life that are meant to be there while we have them. And part of letting go, part of being a spiritually evolved person is recognizing that these become toxic once they run out of the lease. Once the lease is up and you're still holding on to it, then it actually becomes toxic because it's something that you don't need anymore in your life. So instead of it being a process to get you to a certain place, it becomes something that's actually works against you.
Wow.
So that's a process of letting go of those things. The way to attract, which is obviously this is a very important question. So forget about talking about people, but we'll talk about things. It's easier to talk about objects. So famously, the Arizal writes, the Baal Shem Tov speaks about this in great length, that Revim Gam Tzmeim Nafshem Bem Tesatav, that everything that we desire in this world, everything that the physical things that we have, is connected to our soul. That our soul expands. It's not just in our body; it expands into the possessions and the people that we're connected to. So part of who you are is expanding. Your makif, your like surrounding light, expands into objects and things that you're connected to. So there's a question Rav Hashlag asks. It's an interesting question. And he says, if it's true, and it is, that the reason why these are objects that exist within our life, let's say a watch, this is an object that exists in our life is because there's a soul connection and we have to have some type of elevation through that. And through that, the object itself also has some type of soul elevation. Why is it that we chase things and the things don't chase us?
Wow.
It's a good question. In other words, if let's say I say this person has to have a salary or make, $250,000 a year, I don't know, let's say. And you'll say to yourself, but why do I have to chase that money? If that money is meant for me and I have a soul elevation through that money, why am I chasing it? Why isn't that chasing me? Because if they're both soul connection. And the answer is like a track record, essentially, which is when you receive things in this world, in this life, not from a place of need, not from a place of lack. I must have that. And the reason why you receive it is just for selfish reasons that I want it. I need that salary. I need this watch. I need this person, whatever it is. I need that. And when you get it, you only serve yourself. And then almost you forget about the purpose of why you wanted it because of the soul elevation of that transaction. Over time, the sparks that are connected to your soul run away from you.
Wow.
So instead of it chasing you, which should be the natural way, everything that you need in this world, everything, your spouse, your shalom ba, everything that you need in this world should really be attracted to you. The reason why it's not attracted to you is because you were selfish previously, and the things, the sparks and its lights are scared that you're going to take it and not elevate it.
Wow.
So the more we chase things for our own selfish reasons, the further it gets.
Incredible.
But the more we recognize that the things that we have in our life, the people, the objects, and the money, and everything that surrounds us, is there to fulfill us for our soul elevation, for a purpose of reaching up to a higher level of consciousness, to elevate ourselves, to elevate the things that we're encountering with, the more those things become attracted to us. So this is almost like counterintuitive, right? Because you're saying the less you feel this strong desire, I must have it, the more it actually will be attracted to you. And I think that's a very important idea with all things in life, with people, with finances, with bashert, and all these things. What is your intention? What is your kavanah of these things? Why do you want those things? Are you just selfish? Is that a selfish reason? So then you're just, the sparks are going to run away from you.
Wow.
But the more you elevate yourself and you recognize that I'm doing this for a holier purpose, for a bigger purpose, and for a purpose of soul elevation, the more those sparks will be attracted to you.
Wow, that's a heavy answer. Yeah. So let's recap that answer in Gedalia language. Anytime you're chasing something out of sadness, it's going to run away from you. Because blocking, receiving, desire blocks receiving. So what we should really do is we should really be in good states, and then the right things will come to you what's supposed to come to you. So you have to focus on your state, not on not on the conditions. And this pretty much involves anything. Anytime you're in, where even in Reb Nachman would say that whatever problems you're in, change your attitude about the problem. When you change your attitude of the problem, then the problem changes its purpose. But if we receive, that's why we're in a world of you see today, it's you see social media and you see people are craving things on sadness. And not only will it not be good to it, and I've seen many people that they've received things and it got to their head and made them worse of a person. Because all money does is just makes you more who you are. So if you're not a good person, it just makes you a bigger, not nice person. So if we could just focus on being in the proper states, the conditions come. But if we think that we need things because to change our state, then we have a problem because these things will eventually leave you. Wow, that's incredible. Another question.
Yes.
I had to replay that, even though I know that answer 100 times. But it's important to understand that because I say things all the time. When people chase things, I said, you're already lost, you're chasing it. And the same thing, this is why gamblers are never happy and the casinos make all the money, right? Because they're attracting. Yeah, the casinos, the house wins because all of a sudden you're going in there with lack. You're going with scarcity. Scarcity's scary city. We can't go in there with scarcity. The scarcity mindset is what causes the problem in our lives.
That's correct.
Beautiful.
Scarcity is the
Scar city, scary city. Got it? So what could we do? What could we do to get ourselves in a higher consciousness? It's not the funnest things. You could do mitzvot with simcha. You could do things in your Judaism with happiness. You could be a giver. You could do things not attack the problem itself. Do other things to get you in a good mood. Then the problems work out. We think, oh, this has to happen to fix it. This is not fixed, I'm miserable. And this is, I think, the number one trap. That because not only do people not get it, but they end up falling in other problems. Not only do you not get it, but you end up falling in other problems. This is the famous Gemara that says, one who sets his eyes on what is not his loses what he seeks, and what he has is taken away from him. So forget the law of attraction, you also lose what you have. So we could see how we have to, the importance of waking up with feeling abundant. And sometimes you have to faith it till you make it. And believe me, I've seen it, it works all the time. It's a tremendous advice. So we need more simcha in the room, guys. Not conditional happiness over here. This is why we have to teach that to everybody. What other question? I have a few more questions for you. We got a little off topic there. All right, so that's where a person really what are practical ways? Reb Nachman speaks about ways of being besimcha. He speaks about faith it till you make it. Like if you believe, like just like you borrow money from a bank and you think you're gonna pay it back, sometimes you have to borrow it. He speaks about music and dance and working out as a way of actual physical movement. He speaks about joking around as ways of simcha. He speaks about finding your good points. And he also, the fifth one he speaks about is believing at the end of the day it will be good. So because it will be good at the end of the day, you could put your mind there. Is there any other things that you could see from Chabad or any other sources of joy that our sages tell us?
yeah. I mean, there's you mentioned a lot of good ones.
Right.
There's external stimula to joy, and there's internal stimula for joy. External stimula for joy, which is also mentioned by Tzaddik, other many Hasidic masters, is the idea of like listening to music that lifts you, surrounding yourself with people that have a good sense of humor, positive. Humor is generally a very good thing, healthy humor, not mockery. So these are like external things that you surround yourself with those things, with imagery, positive imagery, everything on an external level should be always conditioned for you to be joyful. But the deeper level of joy is internally created. And that's why the word besimcha has the same letters as the word machshava, thought, which is the reason why people walk around, like you said, with scarcity or sadness and emptiness and loneliness, is there is a certain thought process that's happening. There's a certain machshava. There's a film Everyone has a certain screen, and we look at the world through that screen.
Yeah.
And that screen, most times, sadly, is not created by ourselves. It's created by social media, by billboards, by negative influences, and you're not even conscious. Sometimes it's subliminal, and it creates this screen in front of you. And then you look at the world through the screen, and all you see is hardship and pain and suffering, and then you wonder why you're down and depressed, etc. And the truth is, we have to work on creating the proper screen through which we look in the world.
Mm.
And that's through really learning, through learning Torah, through learning Chassidus, through learning the Pnimius of Torah, the inner aspects of the Torah, whatever you're learning, to give you the templates, the correct screen that you can write a new script and through which you can see the world, to have new lenses.
Mm.
And once you have you have a lens, you'll start seeing the world differently. And the more hopeful you are, the more hope there will be in the world.
The Baal Sulam speaks a lot about, and Rav Nachman speaks about that. Actually, when you're doing hard work, you're actually giving. Because obviously, anytime we want to reach these states, there's tremendous amount of opposition. There's tremendous amount of opposition. And one of the things that I got in my head is hard work is giving, something easy is taking. And you spoke about the Baal Sulam, the Rav Ashlag, how the importance of the fact that you have a struggle in something, you're finally actually giving versus just receiving. Because at the end of the day, if you receive, if you're just a receiver, it could eventually leave you. But once you're working on, once you're giving, it's hard for things to leave you. And I found that to explain that a little bit like that.
There's a Kabbalistic idea of or and kli, right? There's a vessel and there's a light. So the light is the shefa, is the giving, is the flow, is love, is chesed. That's the flow. The kli is our vessel. Our vessel is our container. So the vessel is our consciousness and our state of mind and our feelings. Sometimes Hashem wants to give you a tremendous amount of light so you can experience a great breakthrough, whether collectively or individually, but your vessel is just not there. Your kli is not open to receive that light, or the light, to say it a little differently, the light is so great that your vessel cannot contain that light. And that's the reason for challenges.
Mm.
The reason why we go through nisyonos, the reason why we go through challenges is to expand our vessel. And the more we expand our vessel, the more we can receive the light in a correct way. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of times a person can receive like a gift in their life. Let's say they win the lottery, they win something, but their vessel is not open to receive that. That ends up being detrimental to the person. They don't receive it, actually, and it makes a person worse. But when a person has the proper vessels to receive the blessings that they're going to receive in this world, then the blessings become into the vessel in a correct way. So part of these challenges that a person goes through, when you're going through these challenges, is asking yourself, am I just going through the challenge just because it's a challenge? Or what's really trying to occur is there's a greater light that has to come through. There's something more miraculous and more wonderful that has to reveal itself into my life. I'm just not open to that yet because I haven't created the vessel. And the work that I'm going to do, the procreative work, which is really an act of giving to this world, because the better you are a vessel to receive in this world, the more light you're going to generate. So the more we can do that and recognize that it's the expansion of the kli that through going through those challenges, the more the light that we receive is going to be in an integrated way.
And I guess that's where the reward for pain is growth, the reward for growth is giving, and the reward for giving is destiny, pretty much purpose. So at the end of the day, pain leads you to purpose. So if we knew this, we would open up the door every single time we had pain, instead of resist every single time we go through pain. And that's where you see today, people we just can't handle pain today. But if we changed our attitude about pain, then it would ultimately lead us to our destiny today. And that's where we have to actually thank Hashem for the pain, even though it's extremely difficult on an emotional level to deal with this.
Yeah, there's something that is called katnos, like smallness, that comes before godless, or gadlut, that becomes before greatness. And in order for us to receive something that's great, we need to go through the Catus stage. It's like, for example, if you want to grow something, so you put it in the ground, it deconstructs, and then it can reconstruct it. So vegetation has to go through this ion state, through this empty state, through the growth state, which is Catus, restriction, or feeling pain, feeling the pain, feeling the hardship, feeling the sign, feeling the challenge. But it's only for the purpose of the greater growth that's going to happen. And like you say, which is very correct, a lot of times people are trying to push processes quickly. They're going through something that's hard in their life, and they just want to push through it to get to the next stage. And sometimes Hashem actually wants you to go through that stage to actually develop your vessels correctly, and not to leap over those stages. You can't. Let's say a person, God forbid, is a mourning, which would be like a real example of this. So there's a process of mourning. You can't say a person should be joyful and you buried your, God forbid, a person that you love and you should just get up and start dancing. No, the Torah says you have to go through this mourning process, and only by going through this process, which we actually talk about in Chayesar, this week's parsha, that Avram has to to cry for her and to wail for her. This is part of the healing process. You have to do that. You have to go through those stages. There was someone once came to Hasidic Rabbi Pinson of Catus, a great Hasidic master, a student of the Baal Shem Tov, and told him that he has atzirus, which is literally constipation. So he came to the Rabbi and he had constipation. By the way, in the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, this is a very serious thing, constipation. You should know this also. The body has to move. You can't. Anyways, he said he's experiencing this type of stuckness. And Rabbi Pinson Catus told him, because you were going through a katnus in your life, and you rushed the process, and therefore it showed up in your body.
Wow.
So something was stuck because you didn't go through the proper process of katnus. So we need to do this. We need to recognize that if we're going through a challenging time or something that's hard, it's there for a reason, and we need to work ourselves through that stages as well.
And the Rav Nachman speaks about that the evil inclination, the main work is while you're going through the struggle, you see everybody else winning. That's the evil inclination. It's like the guy who's trying to get a hair transplant, all he sees is Fabios in the streets. Everybody's got full of hair, and he can't even grow two twigs on his hair. So you have to be very careful that once you're going through this katna stage, that you're going in that struggle itself, that the evil inclination doesn't get your imagination, tells you, look, you're the only one losing. Everybody else is happy but you. That's a trap, that the evil inclination, because once we activate the evil inclination activates imagination, which is catastrophe. Like when COVID came here, everybody was buying toilet paper in Miami. I don't know what they were doing with toilet paper, but the catastrophe, the despair. We have to be very careful. When kindness is a time really, really to surrender. It's not a time to overthink things. It's just let the storm pass, versus compared to despair. And I find that when talking to people, they get into the imagination just takes over and it leads them to a very dark place.
Yeah, that was not a question, but okay.
Statement.
Yeah, the overactive imagination is the nachash, is the snake. Yeah, that's the snake.
This month, right?
This month, yeah. Let her know. This overactive imagination of it's going to be terrible and it's never going to work out. And anytime the person is going through hardship, the worst thing of the hardship is this imagination, because you always imagine the worst possible scenario, the worst, and it's never the worst. I mean, it will not be even bad, but it's never the worst. And that's our imagination takes off. And then we have the anxiety, and then we feel terrible, and then we actually start manifesting it.
I believe you said that the tikkun for that is to, when we say modim, when we say gratitude, instead of falling down, get right back up. We have resilience. When you feel those down moments, realizes, hey, it's not as bad as it is. Get back up. I think that's how we fix the nachash itself, the snake consciousness, which is sadness and depression. Everybody, thank you for coming. Rabbi, thank you for being here. It was such a pleasure. Amazing night.